This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at AWS.com/learn more.
Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
For every veteran, there is a story about a calling to serve, to fight for the freedoms of the American people. And every story has a struggle, a sacrifice, and invisible wounds. Warrior Watts programs help veterans recover from PTSD and invisible wounds through exercise, nutrition, and connecting with other veteran leaders. It is estimated that 22 veterans die each day by suicide, and another 30 veterans die each day by substance abuse. These are preventable deaths. Warrior Watt is committed to fighting PTSD through fitness, nutrition, and community. Got the privilege and opportunity to support our heroes in their time of need. Will you join us and take action?
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with MisFitNation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share some of your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or are embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at _Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date with our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show. All right. To the Misfit Nation, this Sunday night after dinner chat. Hopefully you got all your football in today. One more game tonight. It's been a pretty good football weekend, minus Notre Dame losing on the last play of the game yesterday. But the Cowboys lost today, so that kind of gave us some promise and hope for the rest of the week. All right. Did well. NASCAR winning Byron Nation this Sunday night after dinner chat. We have a great guest tonight. You got all your football in the U.S. Army decorated combat. It's been a pretty good football weekend. Losing on the last play of the game. He has led teams in broad spectrum geographies, industries, and functions. His people-focused team values-driven leadership style has facilitated the nation in his organization and in his teams. He considers himself the second Army vastly more integrated combat first. He currently resides in Kansas City, where he chose to move during the pandemic. So without further ado, let's welcome Clint Rusch, veteran, leader, innovator, team builder, and problem solver to the Misfit Nation.
Thanks, Rich. So great to be here.
Awesome. It's great to have you here. Like we said in the green room, due to some scheduling issues and communication breakdowns, it took us 2 weeks to get here, but we did it. Resilience showed there, and we were like talking in the green room. You had to have resilience for what you did when you moved to Kansas City right at the height of the pandemic with zero furniture, 0 people there. So it's great to see you here and showing that you due to some scheduling issues.
Thank you.
I just gave basically a two-sentence blurb about you, and I kind of butchered a little bit of it, trying to read ahead of myself there. But if you'd like to go a little further, be it back to as far back as you want to go to your time in service to how we got here. It's great to see you here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up.
I just gave
I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback on the audio.
And I kind of butchered a little bit of nothing on my end. Anything now?
Oh, so much better.
Okay.
So much better. Thank you. I'm sorry. I was hearing myself talk, which is like the worst thing ever for me because nobody wants to listen to me talk, right? Which I guess is a bad situation right now, right? So no, okay. My background. So I grew up in Minnesota, and went to college at the University of Wisconsin. Dropped out of school and joined the Army the day after September 11th. And I was the it was kind of before the groundswell of recruitment. And so, I walked in and said, okay, let's do this. And the recruiter said, well, let me tell you about what the Army has to offer you. And I said, well, let me tell you how to read a buying sign, right? Like I'm here, let's do some paperwork. Right. And so, it took, as it takes for everybody, it took a few months. But got in the beginning of 2002, had the honor of putting my arm up and swearing the oath. And so I came in as an enlisted guy, went to basic training and went out into the force and really enjoyed my time enlisted. Eventually put in my packet and went back to school, and then came back on active duty as an officer. In 2007, deployed to Baghdad, was there from 2007 to 2009. When I got back in the summer of 2009, kind of hit that point where you got to make a decision. And for me, the right decision at that time was to move on and move into the private sector. And really, really glad I made that decision. I think I made the right choice in my life. I'm very happy with where it turned out, but that doesn't mean that I don't, every day go back and think like, well, what if I had stuck around? I miss my guys. I'm still incredibly close with a lot of them. And, it's just such it's the best job that you'll ever have, right? Like that's the joke, but like it's not a joke. It's the truth. So got out, went to work in operations leadership, which was a really standard, like a normal move. I was working in transportation, which is nothing that I knew from my time in the military. And um, over the course of the first couple of years, really got pretty good at the operations side of the business, and then started moving into quality management, figuring out how to make the operation move smoother and work better. Moved from there into eventually working for a couple other companies, and then found my way into management consulting, which is really just quality management writ large. Uh, Eventually left management consulting and got back into industry. And actually, what brought me to Kansas City was that I came here to lead a global logistics company um, for 3 years. So I spent the last 3 years leading that organization, and then at the beginning of this year, or earlier half of this year, stepped down from that role, and took a new role with a healthcare company based in the Fort Worth area. So kind of a circuitous path, but has had I've had some time in finance, some time in sales, some time in quality consulting, operations, a little bit of everything since getting out.
So you just keep building your toolbox just like you did in the military.
Yeah, I think I've had this comment with some people before, like the 2 year rotation thing, right? That like we all get used to in uniform. Like I guess I just kind of stuck with it as I got out, right? It's like every couple of years get itchy and look for a new role.
You got to keep rolling. You got to keep everything new. If it's not new, then you
Keep
become
growing.
stale. So, yeah, you got to keep learning and growing. That's the
Absolutely.
best thing to say there. What was your job in the military?
So I was a 13 Fox when I was enlisted. I was a forward observer. Um, Totally by happenstance and completely by luck, I ended up as an artillery officer,
Wow.
which was fantastic because when I got to OBC, I already had gone to like half of it. Right? I knew the observed fire stuff, and which was great, and I got to focus all my energy on gunnery. Which, if you saw my gunnery scores, you'd realize that man, he really needed to focus all of his energy on gunnery. Um, but no, it was I was an artillery officer, and so then when I got back out into the force, I spent most of my time as a fire support officer, and that's what I deployed as an FSO for an armor company. And so we were downtown Baghdad, weren't hanging many rounds, and so I did most of my time focused on civil affairs, intelligence development, kinetic targeting. We ran a fourth platoon out of the company, and so I ran that platoon. Kind of the fullback, right? Of playing a little bit in everything, and getting my fingers and all kinds of stuff around the outpost.
Definitely, especially in Baghdad, you couldn't really push buttons and target things there without getting a lot of collateral damage, since everything was so
Yeah,
close to each other in Baghdad.
so tight. Yeah,
So exciting.
yeah,
So talk life becomes hell on earth for you. So at least you got to get out sometimes and do the other jobs that you mentioned, like civil affairs, intelligence gathering,
yeah.
and actually seeing the world from a different view besides the Blue Force tractor or the Falcon View, whatever you're using at that time.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Uh,
Yeah.
I train a lot of 13 series here at Fort Campbell, and they're always fun to work with because their first sergeants and commanders, sergeant majors, all get involved in the training. So you can feel the pride in them because it's called field artillery for a reason. They're always in the field, and I'm sure you
Here,
felt
here.
that the whole time. And now, I mean,
Absolutely.
now like you were talking about your austere life when you moved back into this house with no furniture, so that you had to be comfortable. That had to be way more comfortable being in the field artillery.
It's yeah. Once you've had the opportunity to sleep on the back of a Brad, like the ability to have to sit in a lawn chair and watch a football game, like it's all right. It's workable.
It's pleasing at that
It's
point.
pleasing. That's the right word for it. Yes, pleasing. But no, I
So
think
you got
your
this.
point of like being in the field though, like that's the best part of it, right? Like I miss those 5 a.m. days where we'd try to get out of the motor pool before people started running and get back into the training area and get on the hill as soon as we could. Like those were fun days, and I think the dopamine rush that you get from those types of things, like that's really what I've been chasing, in the civilian world. I think for the last 15 years.
And I think as long as you keep that hunger and keep that, I guess, that hustle going to keep you pushing forward, everything will be new to you all the time, and you'll keep that freshness and stay motivated to keep moving forward.
Totally agree, Rich. Totally agree.
When you said get up on the hill, so I'm guessing you were at Fort Riley, and
No, so I was
no,
actually I was in Carson for most of my time.
everything's a hill
So
there. So
everything's a hill there. Yeah, exactly. It's
I
just a
was like,
bunch
oh,
of hills in an impact area that seems to get set on fire every time you go out there. So Yeah.
And that way you can stay out there longer.
That way you can stay out there all day long.
Yeah, my current job now, I get to go out to the field and train soldiers, but then I get to go home at night, so I don't have to sleep out there unless it's a crazy exercise. But then I sleep in a truck anyway. I don't sleep on the ground anymore. But
Yeah.
I get to see the camaraderie, get to feel the dirt and smell the soldiers. Even though I'm clean, they're still horribly dirty, and you can still get all the essence of the field without having
The
to
essence
be
of the
totally
field.
essence they field. You can bottle that stuff and sell it to people.
I was gonna say, yeah, you can get that at the store, right?
I mean, you're in business and stuff. You can do this stuff. Sell it to people.
Ode
Uday
Joe?
soldier. Uday Joe. Yeah. Uday Joe. Yeah. This
Ode
is
Joe?
your 10. This is a 10-day age. This is 30. Go for it.
Yeah, I think they sell the 30 stuff. They call it pepper spray, though. I think if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I think there's a picture of Taylor Swift on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in your
absolutely.
time in the service and now on the corporate side, I'm sure you've seen multiple different types of leaders, and we're able to take notes and say that dude looks good or that lady looks good, and build your leadership style. Is how many leaders in the military and corporate world have you combined to make you?
Oh,
Who's
man.
your top three, probably?
So the guy that I served under in Iraq is absolutely the number one. I think he's the best leader I've ever worked with. We're still incredibly close friends. I'm actually flying out this weekend to go see a football game with him, and like I mean, we're still really really tight. But I think what made his leadership style so exceptional was uh, he was really 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 tough right up until the point when he trusted you. At which point he went very hands off, and like it was a really good it was a really good example to set for how to evaluate people, but also how to balance that like necessity of you got to get the job done and it's got to be done perfectly, right? Like there isn't an exception. 98% isn't 100%, and like that was such an adamant thing. And then there's the other side of it, which is like when you've got it, like I trust you completely, like truly complete trust. And that getting to see both of those sides was such an incredibly valuable thing for me, especially at that point in my career. I didn't appreciate it enough. I didn't appreciate it at the time. I certainly felt, under the thumb on that first part, right?
Yeah.
And like I think that's a natural reaction. And so what that's given me is one, the realization that that's so necessary, but two, the recognition of how important it is to properly contextualize that for people, right? To be able to get them to understand, I'm not doing this, like I'm not kicking you in the behind because like I think you want it. I'm kicking you in behind because I know it's the path to me letting you run like completely unfettered, right? So he was an exceptional leader. We're very close, as I mentioned. Um, Another one that I had an opportunity to work with, who just unbelievable respect for, is there's a woman that I worked for when I was in finance for a while, and one of the things that I was so impressed with about her was her hiring philosophy and the way she amassed talent. And I think it for her especially, a woman in a financial context, it is still, that's still a very male dominated industry, and she was totally comfortable with the idea of putting incredibly talented people around her, to the point where she would actively seek out people who could do things she couldn't, right? Like she was very very obsessed with the idea that she should be the worst person on the team. And and I was always struck by how much confidence and so how much um that quiet professionalism that brings, right? To be able to say like, I want you on my team because you can run circles around me. You're just so much better than me at this thing, and I can't wait to welcome you in. And then when those people, and they did, would flower and grow and move on to other parts of the organization, she never kept them back. She never held them down. And she never said, like, well, if this person leaves, my team gets worse. So I'm going to sort of submarine this process, or like she never did any of it. Right. She had this belief that like she could just go find more great people. And she did. And like it was almost constant. There was just a steady flow of just world-class talent coming in. And I always remember thinking like, how one was like, how does she do it? Right. And I think the way she did it was through incredible authenticity. But two, what a gift to give to your people to basically say, look, I'm never going to stand in your way. I'm never going to take your ideas. I'm going to always be there to serve you rather than the other way around. And I thought like it's such a powerful thing. The third one is actually, so I mentioned I'm working for a healthcare company now, and this is my second go round with this company. I spent time with them. I spent about a year and a half with them before my last role and was recruited away. I had no intention of ever leaving the company. And the guy who founded the company, who is now my boss and business partner, we've become very good friends. And I think he's probably the third one who's really shaped a lot of how I lead and who I am. And the big thing that I think I've taken from him has been this idea of the malleability of people and the ability for people to grow. And when I first worked with him, I remember we sat down. It was maybe a week or two after I started, and he said, like, you just see people as they are. And I said, yes, that's absolutely true. That's how I see people, is as they are. And he said, like, there's got to be a part where you can also see what they can be. And like, that is the unlock for you to become this incredibly like inspirational and transformational leader. And I said, like, yeah, that's true, but I see them as they are. And we kind of argued about it. And there was a part where he just kept pouring that into me. And eventually one day what I realized was he was doing for me what he was asking me to do for others. Right? He was saying, like, you can be better than what you are. You're great today, and you're effective, and you're capable, and you're a good leader today, and you have another gear. And I'm just going to keep showing up in the most positive way imaginable to help you find it. Right? I'm just not going to give up on it. And so I started to steal little things from him and tweak things a little bit. And what I found was that he was totally right, and I was wrong. And it's not enough to just see people as they are. You have to recognize who they are, because you got to be clear-eyed. You always have to have that clear-eyed assessment of what somebody can be. But if you don't see what else they can be, if you don't see the things that they can't see for themselves, then you're not leading. You're just managing. And I think that's the piece that I attribute so much of my success the last few years to being willing to listen to that from him, and being willing to give him the opportunity to help me. And so, now that I'm back working with him again, it's so much fun, because I think he's getting to see the impact of a lot of those decisions and a lot of that time. And we've talked about it before, and every so often he'll just kind of shake his head and go, like, that's the new you, right? And I go, yeah, that's the new me, right? And that's fun. So I think those three really have kind of defined the leadership style that I have.
Nice. And I think that the way you described all three of them are amazing. The last one especially is something that my first platoon sergeant taught me. When he would smoke us at the end of every day in order to be released. Every day at the end of the day, we'd have to do pull-ups, push-ups, dips, and then listen to him give us some mentorship every day. And I was like you, I thought it was just garbage, hot garbage every day. And then at the end of our when we'd get our counseling from him, he's like, I'm training you to take my place. And that's what you need to train the next person to take your place. And that stuck with me from the time I came met Humberto Lopez in 1993 to when I retired in 2015. My job is to make the next me every time. And every person I met was like you, I look at what they are now and had to see what they had before I can see what they could do is their potential. And I think that's the thing a lot of leaders lose is they get that little fishbowl thing. They see what the person has right here and not really what they can do out here. If you can release the thing, a lot of, I think in this corporate world, a lot of people feel if they train someone to do better than them, they lose their job. Mm-hmm. And that's big across. And you don't run into some that are not like that because they don't have that fear, because they know they're strong enough in their convictions and in their leadership style to stay there. But you cannot have that fear to train someone to be better than you.
I think you've got to have there's a I forget where I saw it, but it's what if we train our people to be great and they leave, right? And then the other person says, well, what if we don't do it and they stay, right? And that's really what it comes down to is you should want your people to be better than you. You should want their and I would also argue, I don't think I'm the guidepost, right? I don't think I'm the marking stick. If I look at the people on my team, I want them to be the best them they can be. And if that surpasses me in an area, great. And if it doesn't surpass me in an area, that's okay too. And if they're already past me in that area, that doesn't mean that I stop developing them. That doesn't mean I stop investing in them. That doesn't mean I stop challenging them. It's about them maximizing who they are and what they can bring to the organization. And when you really think about it, like that's kind of the next evolution of what basic combat leadership is, right? And basic combat leadership is about massing fires. It's about being able to create effective outcomes through the utilization of multiple assets, right? That's what people leadership is too. It's getting the most out of somebody so that they can contribute to the larger organization. And I think when you really start to look at it as not just a part of your job, but like the totality of your job, right? And the importance of developing your people. You know, I when people say like, well, we need to work on our culture, like, no, you don't. You don't need to work on your culture because that's not a thing you can work on. Your culture is just an accretion of a million decisions, right? If you want to work on your culture, ask yourself how often you're picking up the trash. Ask yourself how often you're giving feedback that's positive and feedback that's negative. Ask yourself how often you're having honest conversations with people who ask you questions in an earnest way. Ask yourself how often you're inviting subordinates to meetings that they don't belong in so that they can see the conversations and understand the way the business operates at a level above what they're accustomed to day to day. Because that's how you build your culture. That's how you create an organization where people want to lean in and people want to be more than they can and more than they can do today. And they want to stick around in an organization like that, even when they have the opportunity to leave. Right? Because they see it as the organization is here for me. And the truth is the organization is here for them in service of a greater objective. And I think that if I look at the great leaders that I've worked with, they none of them have ever truly articulated those exact points, but they've all had that exact philosophy, right, in some form or fashion. And I think getting to see it in a different way, see it manifest itself in a lot of different areas, has been just one of the greatest gifts I can possibly have imagined for myself.
Definitely. And I think the point you brought about having the person come to a meeting they're not supposed to be in at all. That
Yeah.
person may sit at their desk and question in their head, why is Clint making me do this? Why does he always ask me to do this stupid thing? And I hate it. You take them to that meeting and all of a sudden the light bulb goes on. This is why. Now I understand why when he comes out of that meeting angry and tells me something, it has to be done because it happens there. It's not him just making up something, spinning a wheel at his desk and doing a digital wheel. Today I'm going to mess with him this way. No, it all happens.
Right.
Everything happens for a reason, unless you're just a chaotic person. But most people who are in leadership positions are not.
Right. I also think it gives them so much more confidence in the decisions that get made because they see a little bit of how the sausage gets made, right? And they see, you know, I remember I invited somebody to one of my leadership meetings once, and afterward he asked like, did you guys, was that a show? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, like, you guys argue a lot. Like that was, and I said, yeah, that's why we have the meeting. Right, like nobody benefits from a bunch of people sitting in a room going like, "Yeah, that's a good idea," and all nod their heads. Right, that's not beneficial. What's beneficial is us all pointing fingers at each other and saying like, "That's the worst idea you've had this week, and you've had some bad ones." Right, and like getting to the place where we all can come to a good idea and really poking and prodding it. And I think when he saw that and understood, one, how confident we all were with ourselves and how comfortable we all were with each other to be able to have those conversations. And two, the level of scrutiny that decisions went through before we made them, I think it gave him a lot more confidence that the decisions we were making were good decisions and that we weren't missing things and that we weren't skipping steps, right? Like that's the real benefit of it. And like the idea that I would go through, the idea that I would spend the next day thinking he didn't tell everyone else exactly what he saw, well, that's insanity. You know that as soon as I walked away from his desk, it turned into, hey, everybody, come over here. I'm going to tell you what it, you know, like those guys yell at each other, right? Like, and
it's awesome.
And it's exactly. And I think that like that becomes so infectious, and it just infuses the culture with this trust of they're doing the things that they say they're doing. And that's how we know this is going to work, right? That's how when we ask people to take it on faith, when we ask people to say, look, I'm making a call and I need you to trust me with it. That's how you get that trust.
Definitely. And
You let them see behind the curtain.
And you can compare it to your military time where a leader would tell you to do something and they would do it first. I would never tell a soldier to do something I wouldn't do. I wouldn't say, hey, go out on patrol because I'm going to sit here on the TV and watch you do it. I'm going to go out with you and we're going to hang out. We're going to meet the locals. We're going to do some stuff. But if the leader says, go out there and do it and doesn't go with you, you lose that trust right away. And it's the same thing you're doing, just doing it in a cleaner, different way in the corporate world.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. It's the same behavior, cleaner shoes. That's all it is.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's easier to keep talent that way than it is to say, hey, go take trash out every Tuesday at 2:00 and I'll watch you do it.
Sure. Yeah. And the other part of that is like, is that fun? Like, is that an enjoyable existence to like point at things and go, you do this and I won't? I don't think it's fun. I don't think it's fun.
Horrible.
I don't know any. Yeah. I mean, the closer you get to the action, to the actual activity, like the more fun life generally is, right? I don't want to supervise the guy who's supervising the guy who's supervising the guy who's supervising the guy who's doing the thing. Screw that. I'll skip all those steps and I'll go do it with him. That's more fun.
You can see that in any union job. You can see that. Drive down the highway.
Yeah. Yes. Drive down the highway. Exactly. Yeah. Like all those supervisors really exist to get you to stop doing the stuff, right?
Right.
There's the, hey man, you're just following this up. Please let them get the job done, right? And like, there's value in that. There's value in being told that. But no, I think that the most enjoyable part of leadership is really getting to connect with people and see them create more for themselves. And you can't do that from, bird's eye view. You can't do that from sitting behind a desk. You got to get out and get dirty.
Exactly. And those are lessons a lot of people don't get to learn if they don't wear boots and suits. But if you just come up through the corporate ladder, you can watch a lot of stuff. If you start at the bottom and work your way all the way up, no matter what your education base is, you'll see the best things to do along the way. What differentiates that leader, like we talked about? How is leadership optimized in the best way? But then you also see how leaders, if they do make a mistake, if they fall down, what they do next. And that's the question I'm going to pose to you now. What was has your biggest failure been, and how did you react to get to where you are now?
Yeah. So I mean, I think that the biggest, some of the biggest failures I've had have been decisions. But I think the biggest failures are not recognizing the decisions, right? They're choosing it again the next day. And I think that's the big lesson that I've learned from really the last 15 years, but I think even beyond that is the importance of really just rejecting the sunk costs idea, right? The idea that like, because I did it yesterday, like, no, that's not true. If I was having, this is so funny. I was having dinner with a friend of mine on Friday and we were talking about, he does a lot of CEO coaching. And so he was picking my brain and we were just, talking about a bunch of stuff. And he said, I'm so surprised at the number of CEOs who like get really, they hire somebody and then they get really pissed and they don't like that person anymore. And I said, yeah. And he goes like, you hired him, man. Like it's your choice. And I said, yeah. And the issue isn't that you hired him the first time. The issue is that you hired him every single morning, right? Because every day you have a choice to choose to have that person on your team or not. And so I think that, if I look at the great failures that I've had, the biggest one, and I think this is, kind of top of the list. Well, not kind of, it is. I looked at the logistics market in early 21, I guess it was. Late 20, well, mid 21, it was really spiking. And so we made a bet as an organization that it was going to continue to grow and that we weren't going to see an economic downturn. And the truth is we were wrong, right? We haven't seen the financial recession, but there's absolutely been a freight recession, and so we recognize that in 22, and it was really tough for us to realize we had gotten, and not we, I'm not gonna say we, I had gotten that wrong. Because yeah, my team was involved in that decision, but at the end of the day, it was my call. And I got it wrong. And we hired people out of a belief that we thought the industry was going to go one way and it went a different way. And so we had to have some really, the worst conversations imaginable, right? We had to have the toughest conversations you're going to have in business, which are, I don't have a seat for you anymore, right? And it was awful. Like it's you don't sleep, and you shouldn't, right? You don't eat and you shouldn't. You feel awful and you should feel awful. And I told one of the people on my team she was trying to find a way to, execute it and like trying to reduce the, how do we maybe get around this? And I said, look, at the end of the day, like, it's not going to get better. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be fun. There's nothing about this that's enjoyable. We have to go let some people go. And like, that's just the reality of things. And so we have to do it with all the dignity we can possibly muster. And we have to give them all of the things that we want to give them and take care of them as best we can. But this is what has to get done. And that was a tough decision, right? And that was a mistake on my part. And I think the hardest part of that mistake was that it was just a bad guess. It was just a bad bet. Like, we got to a place where we said we can either go left or go right. We chose to go left and we should have gone right. And like, that's just the way it works. And I think back to my point about kind of the sunk costs, I think the real sin in that, the real challenge in that, the real pain in that would have been if we would have continued down that path, right? If we would have just said like, well, we're not gonna confront the reality of things. We're not gonna accept the reality of things, and that's a tough thing to do. So yeah, I think there's that's probably the biggest mistake I've made, in that regard, and it'll always haunt me.
And I think for every leader in business, when people management is the hardest part, the human side of business is the hardest part.
Absolutely.
For every leader out there, because that Johnny and Jill have a family, Johnny and Jill have bills, but if the company's not making money, you have to make that heart-wrenching decision to let Johnny or Jill go. At that point, it comes down to who do we have, which one's better, and which one can I keep for how much longer, and then it comes down to that. It's a hard decision to make.
It's a tough decision. I will also say that I think it's where having such an exceptionally talented team is both harder and easier, right? Harder because these are great people, but easier because they can do the same calculus, right? They know what the truth is, and when you have to have that. I remember the first person that day, because I made it a point that all of our executive team had the conversations ourselves. We didn't we don't outsource that stuff, and the first person I had the conversation with that day, he came in and he gave me a big hug and he said, "I get it, man. I understand." And I said, like, I can't believe, like, this is like, thank you for making this like easier on me, right? But like, this is making it much harder, obviously. But like, thanks for being such a pro about it. And he said, "Hey, I got to have this conversation once today. You got to keep having it."
Yep.
And I thought, like, okay. And he landed on his feet. I think he was out of a job for an hour and a half, right? Like, the guy was just such a pro. I mean, it wasn't an hour and a half. It was a couple of days, but I mean, like, he was such a pro, right? But I remember, we traded a couple of messages, and it was just like, look, I get it. This is the way of things, but thanks for being such a pro about it. Thanks for being such a, treat me with so much respect on it. And I thought that's the answer, right? Is whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it works, whether it doesn't, you just treat people with just a deep, abiding respect, and everything works out one way or another.
And that comes down to a testament to your leadership towards them prior to that point. If you were that hard charging leader that just always rammed it down their throats up until that point and then let them go, it would have been a different situation. But since you had a leadership style that was open and honest with them the whole time, it probably made the situation a lot better.
Yeah, I thought until just now, that's a really good point. Like, I think that's a really good point. those decisions that we made early on and the way we interacted with people probably did have a huge impact for that. And that really does make a lot of sense. Yeah. I think about leadership, and I've shared this with people. Like, it's really a 3-part model, right? It's people, culture, and process. If you have exceptional people and you like fanatically protect your culture and you define your processes effectively, you can create success, you can sustain success, and then you can accelerate success. And that's it. And the first one, getting and retaining exceptional people, that's the most important thing. At least in the businesses that I've been a participant in, right? It's and the ones I've led, and you know, they're all people businesses. That's our product.
If you build it, they will come. If you build that place,
Yeah.
they want to work. They'll tell 2 friends, and they'll tell 2 friends, and they'll all want to come on board. And that's what your ultimate goal is, to have a long line of people that want to come in, and not a long line of people running out.
Absolutely. I talk with people about, I share this with actually a lot of people at companies I've led, but you know, I'm a huge believer in transparency, and I'm a huge believer in like really radical transparency, like telling people things that they're not even expecting to hear about the performance of the company, the status of the organization, all of that. And so when somebody asked me once, like, what the secret to great culture is, I said it's locked doors. And they what? That doesn't make any sense. You're a transparent guy. I said, absolutely. But it's about locking 2 doors. It's about locking the front door and the back door. And so what I mean by that is, you lock the front door and you say, we will not allow everybody in. We just won't, right? Like there are people who are not good enough to be one of us. And we put them through a very rigorous hiring process. It's very difficult to get in the front door. And when your people see how locked that front door is, right? When they see the number of locks you have on the front door and the fact that you keep them tight, they become protective of that front door as well.
Yes.
And they say like, hang on a second. Are you good enough to be one of us? Are you good enough to be one of us? And then once you make it through that door, they immediately welcome those people because they know they have what it takes. Now you have a group of people inside the room who are even more protective of the front door, and who are much more, they're much quicker at assimilating new people who come in, right? The back door, you just say, good people don't leave. Like, we just don't let it happen, right? Now, look, people are going to leave. It's going to happen. They're going to go on. They're going to find something great. And when that happens, we celebrate it and like we mourn it for ourselves and celebrate it for them. But by and large, like, I don't want people leaving for lateral moves. I don't want people leaving because they're unhappy in the room. And so when somebody starts to kind of move toward that back door, the group pulls them back, right? And says, no. You might be unhappy. We're going to do something about that. This might be something that bothers you. We're going to do something about that. We're going to keep the group together inside the room. You have the front door lock, you have the back door lock, and what you end up with is a group inside the room that almost becomes self-policing, right? They when they interview somebody, they ask them tougher questions in interviews, and they really do become protective of the organization. When somebody comes in, they're the wrong fit, they raise their hand right away and they go, this person's not the right fit. We made a mistake, we missed. Rather than saying, maybe it'll work out. When you keep the back door locked, right, that same group of people looks out for each other. They take care of each other. When somebody's having a tough day, they don't go, that guy's having a tough day, stay away. They go, that guy's having a tough day, let's go pull him back, right? And those 2 locked doors create an exceptional culture inside. And I am, there's a lot of things that I figuring out, and I'll try one way and try another way, and kind of, not strong opinions held loosely, right? Like that's very much it. This is one that's strong opinion held very tightly, right? Those locked doors, that's the key.
Definitely. And once they start self-policing, it's kind of like the E4 mafia in the military.
It's
They weed out people for you. They push the bad out. They keep the bad from coming in and push the bad that's in out. And all you got to do is stir the ship or steer the ship the right way. And hopefully you have the right ship built at that point.
Yeah, exactly. That's couldn't agree with you more.
So Clint, has been a great chat. How can someone get in contact with you to do what we're doing right now? Have you on their show? Maybe pick your brain for their organization as a consultant, or maybe have you train them to be a better leader along the way.
Absolutely, Rich. Yeah. So the best way to get in touch with me is clintrusch.com. And that's the easiest way, or find me on LinkedIn. Those are the two easiest paths to find me. It's RUSCH. So clintrusch.com or Clint Rusch on LinkedIn. Those are the two easiest ways to find me.
Awesome. And the website is going across the bottom of the screen right now for those of you watching on YouTube or Rumble. And if you're going to list this on the podcast app, it will be in the show notes. So all you have to do is click it or just listen to him spell it, and it's pretty easy. It's his name. It's obvious. It's good. Just click it and go. Clint, I'm going to let you go after one more question. Top 3 leadership books you've read.
Oh, top 3 leadership books. Okay, number 1 is Hard Thing About Hard Things. The Hard Thing About Hard Things is the best business book that's ever been written. I expect every person who works for me to read it. I read it once a month. It's fabulous. If you're not comfortable with salty language, it's not the right book for you. I suspect, and maybe I'm wrong, but I suspect your listeners probably going to be okay with salty language.
They're pretty good with it.
So yeah, I would imagine. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think We Were Soldiers Once and Young is a great book. Obviously, I think there's a lot of people who have certainly recommended that. But I think that's a really, really good one. And then I think the third one for me is a book called Thinking in Bets, and it's Annie Duke, who's a former professional poker player. She wrote a book about how probability can help you make better decisions, and I think leadership is largely decision making. And so this idea of using Bayesian statistics and the idea of adjusting your priors as new information comes in, it's all something we understand intuitively. But she really breaks it down in a way that it gives leaders a really good, almost mathematical model that you can use to make better decisions. And if you make better decisions, leadership gets a lot easier.
Definitely. Clint, thanks again for taking some of your time tonight on Sunday night when you could be sitting in your house watching football on your actual furniture now, and on your big screen TV watching football. And I'll let you get back to that now and have a couple beers and watch whoever's playing tonight. I don't even know actually right now, but I'm sure it'll be a great game, and I look forward to seeing all the great things you do in the future.
Hey, thanks so much, Rich. Thanks for having me on, and really appreciate it. Good to get to chat, and hope to talk to you soon.
Have a good night.
All right, take care, Rich. Thanks.
Bye.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the MisFitNation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all of our past episodes and get some of that great Misfit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are MisFit Nation.